Hi again. This is the second episode. I'm sorry. I apologize for that the terrible production values on my last uh, episode, but Dodo's wasn't going apeshit because of this thing's in our way. So I'm gonna finish reading the story now, and then I'll shut up for this Christmas episode. We're trying to set off a couple of episodes every few days or so, like weather balloons, in the bathtub hemisphere. The opening section of this story is about a guy who has some horrible, really super wealthy, awful, plutocratic father who died, and the fathers come back to haunt him to tell him that he lives in celestial estates, which is filled with beautiful girls and great food, and he's really happy, even though he was a bastard. Next scene. Well, that certainly sounds like your father, his mother told him later on a Skype call from Rio, where she was coordinating a teacher strike for the local workers' party. He only cared about one thing, and that was enjoying a better life than everybody else. He had to have the best car, the best wife, the best house, and whenever one of them got old or unfashionable, he dumped it and bought another. But anyway, I don't have time to piss on your father's grave, hon, as much as I'd like to. Let's look at the bright side. At least he called, which is something he never did when he was alive, and while he may be dead, he's still your father. You guys should get together. Something non-committal, like dinner or a movie. Over the next few days and nights, Arnold tried to recall his relationship with Arnold Simonson Sr. As a child, Arnold had looked up to his father, who always knew what coat to wear with which slacks, drove a sportier car than other dads, and annually presented Arnold with a $1,000 birthday bill in a crisp white envelope, stapled to a typed set of recommendations for stocks, T-bills, and foreign currencies. Some people spend their lives waiting for government bailouts, Arnold Simonson Sr. told his son at every such birthday celebration, which ritually consisted of a cake baked by Arnold's nanny, Consuela, and a chimichanga cooked by his nanny, Consuela, and a big bear hug from his nanny, Consuela. But Arnold's favorite part was sitting on his father's lap at the computer and deciding how to invest his birthday present. With his father's firm hand on his shoulder, he scrolled through quotes for Uber, Apple, and Berkshire Hathaway, back when they were just gleams in a stockbroker's eye. He opened his first IRA before he hit puberty, and his first tax-exempt college fund while still doing his best schoolwork in Crayola. And everything Arnold's father told him to buy paid off in huge dividends, even while emotional investments, and his father never did. Sorry, I don't do school concerts, kid, Arnold Simonson Sr. often told him, and parent-teacher conferences are for losers. And inevitably, of course we'll still see each other's sport, but when my lawyer's finished with your mother's lawyer, you'll have trouble scraping up bus fare to meet me downtown for lunch. Anyway, my evenings are pretty busy on account of all the women. But even while you may not see much of me over the next few years, never doubt how much I love you. And every time you look through that muy excelente stock portfolio we assembled, my love for you should never be in doubt. I never had anything against your mom, Arnold's father explained the next evening, after erupting from a GIF on Arnold's Facebook feed. He was wearing a black tuxedo and stood in a room filled with other men in black tuxedos, many of whom Arnold recognized from the obituary pages of the Financial Times. Being angry at your mom wouldn't make sense, financially speaking. I saw your mom simply as a threat to my reputation, and when anybody threatens my reputation, I shut them down. I strip their assets. I feed their entrails to my stooges. It wasn't personal, it was business. There's only one principle to living a good life, son, and that's to enjoy your privileges while you're alive. Otherwise, how can you know which privileges to continue enjoying after you're dead? Think about it. Even if you don't like me, you have to admit that I make a lot of sense. Dad's image was slowly dissembling into a foam of white televisual static, reforming and then slowly disassembling again. It was like trying to stream movies during a thunderstorm. Finally, Arnold said, Dad, I have a question, but I don't know how to ask. Dad was half turned from the screen, accepting a tall, sparkling glass of champagne from a silver tray. He seemed to find the glass a lot more interesting than he found Arnold. Go ahead, kid, he told the glass. Shoot. Let's say that you and your old friends are living the same happily exorbitant life you lived when you were alive. My question is this. What about everybody else? What about all the normal people like Grandpa and Granddad, or even Consuela, who fixed me dinners every night? All the people who may not have been rich, but who worked hard all their lives, did the best they could, and died. Where do those people go in the afterlife, Dad? Not a big deal or anything. Just asking for a friend. Arnold's dad had finished his champagne. His eyes were closed. He breathed slowly and exhaled. Then, without opening his eyes, he handed his empty glass to a tuxedoed waiter who arrived just in time to take it. Turning his hard blue eyes to the camera, or to his MacBook Pro, or to whatever celestial photo imaging app they had up there in the afterlife, he said, "Don't waste time worrying about what happens to losers like your granddad and Consuela, kid. Just make sure that the next loser isn't you." Arnold called in sick at work and powered down all his devices, including his smartphone and his desktop. He bought several books on Zen and signed up for a watercolor class at Adult Ed. He sprouted several seeds of automatic flowering white widow in a hanging pot outside his bedroom window, repainted his apartment in neutral colors such as filmy green and blue diamond, and practiced deep breathing exercises in the bathtub, sometimes with either a mug of Lapsang Souchong cradled against his chest or a small glass of bourbon. "You need to get his voice out of your head," advised his ex-girlfriend Filomena Rodriguez, who had moved to Philadelphia to work part-time at Trader Joe's. "Your dad is like all your negative energies rolled into this one big cloud of self-hate. These negative energies eat away at your insides. They turn your chakra inside out. When we were together, Arnold, I could feel you channeling these negative energies all the time, and while I truly hope you can escape your dad's horrible influence, I'd prefer not to hear from you again. You're a big fat drain on my karma. You're a walking metaphysical bummer. I've only been talking to you for like 5 minutes, and the poinsettia on my dining room table is starting to wither. That was a perfectly healthy poinsettia 5 minutes ago, and now it doesn't look like it'll last through Christmas." For several days, Arnold behaved as unpredictably as possible. He took long walks on Avila Beach. He read paperback mystery novels purchased from thrift stores and avoided any publications related to the material world. And instead of trying to resuscitate his rapidly dwindling houseplants, he dumped them in the steel trash bins behind his apartment. It was best to cut yourself off from all forms of organic life, he reflected. Otherwise, you might get lured into affections for the world that produced them. But as much as Arnold tried, there didn't seem to be any way of avoiding his dead father. Arnold blamed it on the prevalence of interactive social media, which required people to maintain contact with people long after they shouldn't maintain contact with them. He left a message, his co-worker at the Arroyo Grande Center for Political Justice, Alice Locklear Jones, told Arnold when he arrived at the office on Christmas Eve. "And it's long. Should I read it?" "I'd prefer you didn't." Arnold sat in a faded leather swivel chair next to Alice at the otherwise empty switchboard. All their sensible co-workers had left for the holidays, but Arnold and Alice had volunteered for the Christmas Eve shift, since Arnold's mom was off canoeing for democracy, and none of Alice's family talked to her. Alice held the pinkish "You've Got a Message" slip in both hands, as if preparing to read a legal judgment in court. "You can't hide from family, son," she read stiffly in a flat, unaccented fake male voice that sounded like Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey. "I've tried communicating through your iPad, and I've tried communicating through your cell phone, but it's like you're avoiding me. So here's what we're going to do. Later tonight, you're going to be visited by one ghost, me, and I'm not leaving until you've learned how to improve your life through capitalism. Seriously, there's not a university on this planet that can teach you what I can about making money, screwing everybody over who doesn't make money, and sending your soul on the path of everlasting happiness and reward. I should write a book on the subject, but I was never very good at punctuation. So enjoy your last few hours of barely existing and eating your frozen turkey dinners and so forth. Those days are coming to an end hard." Oh, and is that Alice What's-Her-Face taking down this message? We were just discussing her at yesterday's executive board meeting on New Year's Eve. On New Year's Eve, she will choke on her own vomit and spend eternity washing our floors and cleaning our toilets. Remember, kid, heaven doesn't make excuses for losers. And later tonight, that's the first thing I'm going to teach you. When Alice finished, her eyes were filled with sadness, for everyone in the world except Arnold. "What's most disturbing about your dead dad, Arnold," she said, "is that he actually makes sense. You can't turn your back on family. Now, if you don't mind, it looks like I've got to see a lawyer about my will." When Arnold drove home that night on Highway 101, it didn't seem like Christmas Eve. The skies were bright and clear, littered with hard, bright stars. Attractive young people in tank tops drove past in open convertibles, playing their dashboard sound systems full blast. With intermittent splutters, Dad's voice erupted from each dashboard speaker that passed by. "I'll be home for Christmas. You can plan on me. I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams." That's supposed to be Arnold's dad singing. "You can't shut me out of your life forever, son. We're both the same person deep inside. Ho, ho, ho. Fa, la, la. Reprise, reprise, if only in my dreams." By the time Arnold pulled into his concrete carport, he felt sweaty, dried out, and exhausted like a dead leaf. His apartment was filled with a day's accumulated heat, as heavy and profound as bad news. And his potted fir sapling had spilled an array of spiny brown needles across the thin carpet. Not another Christmas, Arnold thought sadly. Not another Christmas like the last one. Out of spite, Arnold heated a saucer of eggnog on the stove, spiked it with a generous splash of generic rum, and filled 2 matching Santa mugs purchased 2 years previously from Oxfam. Then he laid out 2 small plates of Christmas biscuits on a fold-out plastic card table, plugged his television into the wall, and took the remote control to a stuffed chair as if preparing to comfort a small pet. It was the same blocky, bottled glass colored Panasonic analog television with a cracked channel dial that Arnold inherited when his mom moved away. Even connected to the cable through a converter box, the wobbly picture was streaked with rainbows. The transistors warmed with a slow, vibratory thrum, like the engine of a broken microwave oven. "Jesus, Rice Krispies," Dad said, squeezing through the blurry screen headfirst like a well-dressed POW emerging from the mouth of an escape tunnel. The effervescent static came blowing in around him, settling on the carpet and furniture like pale confetti. "You could do serious damage to a guy with a crappy TV like that. The first thing we do is get you a flat screen so I can drop by any time I want and I don't damage the suit. Now look, let's spruce ourselves up," at which point Arnold Simonson Sr. slapped the flaky white and green snow from his chest and shoulders, "and find some trashy lap dancing establishment that's open Christmas Eve, which, as I seem to recall, is probably all of them." He looked unnaturally smooth, as if he had just been shellacked. It had taken Arnold several decades to develop an imperfect comprehension of his father. Initially, he considered him a checkbook Santa who dropped by each year to deliver an envelope. Then, for several years, he was an absent Santa, remarried to a Guatemalan model named Fabiella, and living in a series of tax havens that Arnold couldn't even pronounce. Finally, he was dead Santa, preserved in all his rage in the North Pole somewhere, surrounded by bitter, recalcitrant elves. All my life, Arnold reflected, Dad was either barely here, or not here, or never going to be here, until he died and refused to go away. Go figure. Where are you going, son? Come back here. We need to drop by an ATM for a stack of C-notes. You can't get a decent blowjob on Christmas Eve without a decent stack of C-notes. I've been there, kid, and I know. The only item from his father that Arnold took home after the funeral was a set of 24-karat gold-plated Hanma 5 Stars golf clubs that now stood in his bedroom closet, shrouded in old sweaters and jackets. His mom used to say, "If you want to get close to your father, hon, you should disguise yourself as one of those damn golf clubs." He loves those golf clubs. He sits up late at night, stroking and talking to those golf clubs. I've never been concerned about the women he sneaks around with. The only thing that concerns me is his relationship with those golf clubs. It was the only time Arnold remembered his mother using the word damned. That's because his mom wasn't a damned sort of person. She was more a forgive and forget sort of person. And Arnold had spent his life trying to be more like his mom than his dad. But that didn't mean he had been successful. "What the hell, son?" his father shouted joyfully when Arnold returned to the living room. "Is that my old 9-iron? I've been looking all over for that little piece of hand-tooled beauty. I thought they'd sell them in the hereafter, but no such luck." Sometimes, Arnold decided, you needed to accept the worst aspects of yourself just as confidently as you accepted the best ones. Sometimes the worst aspects were more useful, such as the part that never forgave and forgot. "Hey, kid, what are you doing? Are you kidding? You can't hurt me with that thing. I'm already dead. And anyway, at the first sign of trouble, all I got to do is dive back through this television into the eternal glory of my luxurious, posthumous life. Unless, of course, what you're really trying to do is, no, son, please, not that." Arnold had never learned the proper way to wield a driver, certainly not one as well balanced as this one. He suspected that you probably shouldn't hold it as he was holding it now, like a sledgehammer, and swing it as he was swinging it now, as hard as you could. At which point, Arnold smashed the blocky Sony Panasonic into 100 tiny pieces. It was the best damn Christmas present he had ever given himself. If life is funny, Arnold reflected over the next few weeks and months, then death is even funnier, especially when it happens to somebody who isn't you. For the first few days, Arnold's dad howled the way forlorn Irish ghosts were supposed to howl in Tarn-locked Gothic castles. "Oh no," he howled. "What did you do to the goddamn TV? Oh no. What do you mean you donated your broken Kindle to UNICEF and you don't even have a transistor radio? Oh no, oh no." It was as if Arnold's dad, like the vast majority of American teenagers, couldn't survive for 2 minutes without digital interface. "I guess you're stuck with me, Dad," Arnold enjoyed reminding his father every evening when he came home from work with either a Veggie Supreme gluten-free pizza from the community co-op or materials for a rocket and vinaigrette salad. "But that's not so bad, is it? I mean, this allows us to do a lot of catching up. For example, you probably didn't know I sold my investment portfolio back in high school and donated what felt like ill-gotten gain to a series of charities such as Brand New Congress and the International Red Cross. Which is why we can't afford to move out of this crummy one-bedroom. I'm afraid you'll have to keep sleeping on that wobbly couch. Also, since I'm a long-standing member of the Young Socialist Alliance and we have our meetings here on alternate Tuesdays, you should get used to lots of beards and braids stopping by. But don't expect any smartphones or tablets. We've banned any electronic devices that could collect data on the various plots we're hatching against the government. And I'm not talking just about our government, Dad. I'm talking about all of them." As Dad's howling diminished, his enthusiasm for elaborating Arnold's failures diminished with it. Day after day and week after week, he sat in a slowly fading, rumpled tuxedo, gazing desultorily down at whatever herbal tea he had procured from Arnold's minimally provisioned kitchenette, nibbling loosely at rice cakes and falafel bread, and slowly losing focus in the candlelight. Arnold had installed a dozen candles and old wine bottles around the apartment after the electricity was cut off. At this rate, Arnold often thought out loud, we'll be living on the street by next Christmas. A premonition that always inspired Arnold's face to break into a smile. Anyway, happy holidays. That's the first Christmas story of our holiday spectacular. We're going to have a holiday spectacular. Dodo will come and go, and Lucky will come and go, but we'll try not to have a total disaster like the previous one. Okay, happy holidays. More soon.